I was enjoying a peaceful morning, sipping my coffee, when the sound of sirens shattered the calm. Not one, not two, but 3 police cars sped up my gravel driveway, kicking up dust like an action movie. I blinked in confusion. The only crime happening here was me trying to enjoy my coffee in peace. Then, emerging from one of the squad cars, stomping with all the authority of a general leading an army, was the last person I expected, Linda Morrison, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, clutching a clipboard like it was a sword of justice. With an air of absolute entitlement, she screeched, "This man has an illegal electric fence. He's endangering the entire community." The morning had started like any other. I had just settled onto my porch with a fresh cup of coffee, enjoying the crisp air and the sight of the sun rising over my 10-acre property. Life in the countryside had its perks: peace, quiet, and the joy of knowing that my land was my own, free from the petty rules of a homeowners association. Or so I thought. The distant wail of sirens broke my tranquility. At first, I assumed they were headed somewhere else, maybe to a car accident or an emergency down the road. But as the sound grew louder, I felt an odd sense of foreboding. Moments later, 3 police cars skidded onto my gravel driveway, sending dust flying in every direction. I stood there, utterly bewildered, as uniformed officers began stepping out of their vehicles. Before I could even ask what was going on, a shrill voice pierced the air. "There! That's him! That's the criminal!" I turned to see a short, furious woman storming toward me. Clutching a clipboard as if it were a weapon, she marched with the determination of someone who had just declared war. Her oversized sunglasses sat perched on her face, her expression one of pure outrage. It took me a second to place her, but then I remembered the name my neighbor had once mentioned with disdain: Linda Morrison, the head of the HOA 2 miles away. She didn't live here. She had no authority here. And yet, here she was, acting like she owned the place. "This man has an illegal electric fence," she screeched, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at me. "He's endangering the entire community." I blinked, trying to process her words. My electric fence? The same standard livestock fence that every farmer and rancher in the area used to keep predators away from their animals? It wasn't some high-voltage monstrosity. It was a simple deterrent, legal and harmless unless you were the size of a raccoon or smaller. The lead officer, a tired-looking man who had clearly seen too much nonsense in his career, turned to me. "Sir, we received a complaint about an illegal hazard on your property." I took a slow sip of my coffee before responding. "You mean my fence?" He nodded. I gestured toward it. "It's legal. I have all the permits." "Want to see them?" Linda gasped, her face twisting in exaggerated horror. "He's lying," she shrieked. "I have photographic proof that this fence is a death trap. What if children wander onto his land? What if someone's pet gets electrocuted?" I glanced at the officer, who was already rubbing his temples. "Does she even live around here?" I asked, motioning toward Linda, who was practically vibrating with rage. The officer sighed. "No, she's from the HOA 2 miles away." I set my coffee down on my porch railing and ran a hand through my hair. "So why is she here?" Linda looked personally offended by the concept of boundaries. "Because your fence affects our property values," she declared. "It's ugly. It's dangerous. I will not allow this negligence to ruin our community." One of the younger officers coughed, probably to hide a laugh. The older cop pinched the bridge of his nose and sighed. "Ma'am," he said in the universal tone of someone who deeply regretted his career choices, "this man's property is not under your HOA's jurisdiction." Linda's face turned a shade of red that almost made me concerned for her health. "But it's still near our community," she argued. "And I refuse to let some hillbilly play mad scientist with high-voltage fences." I was about to explain that my fence barely delivered a tickle when, as if on cue, my neighbor's goat, Sparky, trotted up to the fence. Now, Sparky wasn't the brightest creature in the world. He had a habit of getting into places he shouldn't, and an even worse habit of testing his limits. Before anyone could react, the goat stuck his nose on the fence and got a tiny zap. Just a little one, enough to make him jump back in surprise. Linda screamed like she had just witnessed a murder. The officers and I just stood there, watching as Sparky, completely unfazed, flicked his tail and wandered off like nothing had happened. "Did you see that?" Linda clutched her chest like she was about to faint. "An innocent animal, shocked. He could have died. The officer who had been holding back a laugh earlier was now openly smirking. "Ma'am," he said, barely containing his amusement, "it's a livestock fence. It's designed to keep animals safe from predators. That goat just learned not to touch it." Linda's face turned an even deeper shade of red. "I don't care. This is unacceptable. I demand you arrest him for animal cruelty." The lead officer turned to me with the expression of a man who had seen some truly stupid things in his life, but was currently witnessing new records being broken. "Sir," he asked, sounding almost apologetic, "do you want to press harassment charges?" Linda made a strangled noise. "Harassment? Me? I'm the victim here." I let out a long sigh and turned to the officers. "Nah, I'll pass. I'd rather just get back to drinking my coffee." Linda gaped at me, completely outraged that I wasn't playing along with whatever insane power trip she was on. "This isn't over," she screeched before storming back to her SUV. "I'm going to report this to the county, to the mayor." Her rant was cut off as she tripped over her own feet and nearly face-planted into the dirt. I didn't laugh. Okay, I did. I wanted to believe that Linda would move on after her humiliating defeat with the police, but deep down, I knew better. Some people thrive on conflict, and Linda was one of them. Within 2 days of her dramatic police encounter, she had regrouped and launched her next offensive, an onslaught of paperwork. One morning, I walked out to check my mailbox and found it crammed full of envelopes. At first, I thought they were just more junk mail, but as I pulled them out and flipped through them, I realized they all bore the official-looking letterhead of the HOA. The problem? I wasn't part of their HOA. I sat on my porch, opening the envelopes one by one. Each contained a violation notice for my electric fence, accusing me of a range of ridiculous offenses. Unapproved structure impacting neighborhood aesthetics, public safety hazard, unauthorized electrical installation, non-compliance with HOA community guidelines. At the bottom of each letter was a fine, ranging from $100 to $500, with threats of escalating penalties if I didn't comply immediately. One even warned of a lien being placed on my property, again, an empty threat, considering they had no legal authority over my land. I chuckled, shaking my head. Linda was really grasping at straws. Later that day, I visited my neighbor, Mr. Harris, the local sage when it came to town gossip. He was already on his porch, beer in hand, watching his goat, Sparky, chew on an old boot. "You won't believe this," I said, dropping the stack of notices on the table beside him. He squinted at them and then let out a wheezing laugh. "Oh, she really don't know when to quit, does she?" "Apparently not. Can she even do this?" "Nope," he said, still chuckling. "Ain't got a lick of legal standing. But that's never stopped Linda before. She's been running that HOA like a dictatorship for 10 years. Tried to fine a guy once for painting his front door the wrong shade of blue. Threatened to evict a veteran for flying an American flag without approval. She don't like losing." I sighed. "Great. So this isn't over." "Not even close," he warned. "If she can't intimidate you with fake fines, she'll try something else." A few days later, the next phase of Linda's harassment began. This time, it was a full-blown misinformation campaign. It started with strange phone calls. At first, I thought they were spam, but when I finally answered one, I heard an unfamiliar voice, full of outrage. "How could you?" A woman's voice snapped. "How could you put up a death trap for animals?" "Excuse me," I replied, baffled. "Your fence electrocuted a dog. I saw the video. You should be ashamed." I hung up, more confused than anything. Then, I checked social media. Sure enough, Linda had taken her fight online. She had posted in the HOA's private Facebook group, claiming that my fence was killing innocent animals. She even posted a heavily edited video. It showed stock footage of an electrocuted squirrel, pulled straight from the internet, and a distorted image of my fence. The comments were a disaster. "This is disgusting. How is this even legal? We need to petition the county to shut this down. Won't someone think of the children?" I almost had to admire her dedication. Almost. Instead, I called my lawyer. Days later, Linda took her scheming a step further. My security cameras caught movement near my fence in the middle of the night. I checked the footage and nearly burst out laughing. There was Linda, dressed in all black, crouching like a cartoon villain, dragging a dog crate. It was clear what she was trying to do: release an animal near my fence to get it zapped for another expose. But fate had other plans. As she tried to open the crate, She tripped over a rock and fell flat on her face. Then, in a moment of poetic justice, she accidentally backed into my fence. The zap wasn't strong, just a tiny jolt, but the way she shrieked and flailed, you'd think she had been struck by lightning. She staggered around, cursing, before scrambling back to her car. I saved the footage immediately. The next morning, I sent a copy to my lawyer, the county animal control, and, just for fun, posted a small, carefully edited clip online. Nothing too aggressive, just a simple caption. When your neighbor trespasses and finds out electric fences work as advertised. It went viral within hours. Thousands of people laughed at Linda's antics, with comments ranging from, "This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. How do we nominate this woman for the Darwin Awards? I bet she'll try to sue the fence for emotional damages." And just like that, her credibility took a major hit. I wanted to believe that Linda's antics had peaked when she got caught on my security cameras, but she wasn't done yet. When her smear campaign and fake violations failed, she resorted to outright vandalism. One night, I checked my security footage before heading to bed, a new habit I had developed thanks to Linda's increasing desperation. That's when I saw them, 4 figures creeping along my property line, armed with spray cans. I zoomed in and instantly recognized Linda leading the charge, flanked by 3 of her HOA cronies. The next morning, I walked outside to find my barn defaced with bright red spray paint. Scrawled in large, uneven letters were the words, "HOA rules." I sighed, shaking my head. "Really, Linda? This is the best you've got?" I immediately called the sheriff's department. When they arrived, I handed over the footage. The officers didn't need much convincing. Linda and her accomplices had been caught red-handed. With clear evidence of trespassing and property damage, law enforcement had no choice but to pay her a visit. Later that afternoon, a squad car pulled up to Linda's house. Her yard was immaculate, her hedges trimmed to precise perfection. But all that perfection didn't save her from what came next. Linda stormed onto her porch as the officers approached, her face already flushed with indignation. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. "Ma'am, we have security footage of you and 3 others trespassing and vandalizing private property," one officer said flatly. Her expression twisted. "That's ridiculous. I was nowhere near his property." The officer pulled out a tablet and pressed play. There she was, in full HD, spray painting my barn. Linda paled. That isn't me. It's been doctored. This is slander." "Ma'am, the video is time-stamped and matches local security footage," the officer continued. "We also found paint cans matching the ones used in your garage. Caught. Red-handed." Linda sputtered, then did what she always did, tried to turn the tables. "This is harassment. He set me up. You should be arresting him." The officers exchanged a glance before one of them said, "Ma'am, please turn around. You're under arrest for trespassing and property damage." Linda shrieked as they cuffed her. The whole neighborhood watched in stunned silence. Some even recorded it on their phones. With Linda in legal trouble, her carefully crafted empire began to crumble. The HOA board, desperate to distance themselves from the mess, held an emergency meeting. Within a week, they officially removed Linda as president. Her supporters, once so loyal, suddenly found it convenient to pretend they had never backed her in the first place. One of the board members even showed up at my property, awkwardly clearing his throat. "On behalf of the HOA, I just wanted to, apologize for any inconvenience Linda may have caused." I smirked. "Just an inconvenience, huh? I'll keep that in mind." By now, Linda had become a laughingstock. The video of her vandalizing my barn had made its way online, gaining thousands of views. People in the town gossiped about it, and local news even did a small segment on her arrest. Her reputation was destroyed. It didn't take long before the inevitable happened. She put her house on the market and left town. 1 week after listing it, a moving truck pulled into her driveway. I stood on my porch, watching as she packed up her life and drove away for good. Just as her car disappeared down the road, Mr. Harris walked up beside me. "Reckon that's the last we'll hear of her?" I chuckled. "Let's hope so." Sparky, my neighbor's goat, wandered over, eyeing my fence again. I gave him a pat on the head. "Not today, buddy." With a satisfied sigh, I took another sip of my coffee, enjoying the peace and quiet I had fought so hard to keep. Lessons learned. This story is a testament to the fact that not everyone has the right to control you or your property. especially when they have no legal authority. Far too often, people attempt to impose their own rules and influence where they have no jurisdiction, and it's crucial to recognize when someone is overstepping their boundaries. Standing your ground in such situations requires patience and resilience. It is important to remain calm, document every interaction, and seek legal guidance when necessary. Ignoring baseless threats and instead focusing on legitimate rights and laws is often the best way to dismantle an unjust power play. Additionally, this situation highlights the importance of preparation. Having security measures in place, maintaining records, and understanding local laws can protect you from harassment and manipulation. Bullies thrive on intimidation, but knowledge is the greatest weapon against them. When you know your rights, you strip them of their power. Ultimately, this experience serves as a reminder that no one can take away what you rightfully own or dictate how you should live if they lack the authority to do so. Standing firm, being proactive, and having confidence in your legal rights will always ensure that justice prevails in the end. Meaningful message. Persistence and standing your ground are essential when dealing with bullies or people who try to control your life without a valid reason. Life is full of challenges, but when you stand firm with the truth, you will always come out on top. Always protect your rights and never let anyone impose unreasonable demands on you. Personal opinion. Sometimes, people with a little bit of power feel the need to control others, even when they have no legal authority. Instead of being afraid or avoiding confrontation, we should understand the law and defend our rights smartly. A little humor and calmness can turn a negative situation into a memorable story. If you love interesting, dramatic stories that also come with valuable lessons, be sure to follow Story Precious. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss the latest videos. Every story carries a message, a new perspective, and can help you handle similar situations in life. Join the Story Precious community today. Rocket Fire.